Pranav Sayta, National Leader, International Tax and Transaction Services, EY India is with us. So is Baman Rustam Irani, Chairman and Managing Director at Keystone Realtors. Welcome to both of you and thank you so much for speaking with us today. Mr. Sayta, I'm going to come to you first just to understand what is the extent of benefit. Now, quite like the new tax and old tax regime, sellers will have an option to go in for the indexation plus higher tax or no indexation plus a lower tax. Is there a sort of back of the envelope calculation on which scenario works for whom?
Yeah, very good question. So essentially where the appreciation in the value of the immovable property has been very large relative to the cost. So if the property has appreciated very quickly and significantly, then that's where one would go with the 12.5% because the indexation benefit will not be that great. Indexation applies on the base of the original cost. And therefore, where the appreciation has been swift and large, one would go with the 12.5% tax. But where there is a large tax original cost base, and therefore the indexation benefit is significant, one would normally prefer the 20% with indexation option, or rather it's not even an option, they say whichever is lower will apply, so to say. And therefore I think large appreciation in a short period, 12.5%, but low cost base, or rather low cost base and large appreciation, one would go with 12.5%, but if there's a high cost base, then one would try indexation because on the high cost base, the indexation benefit would also be very significant. So 20% would be okay paying because the indexation benefit would be significant. That's how I would look at it.
And wouldn't it matter how old the property is or how much time since that property has been acquired? How would that come into play?
Yes, very much. That would. But again, wherever the cost has been very, very small. So for example, if I had acquired a property at a very small cost and the appreciation over the years, because the more the period that goes, the more the appreciation as well. So therefore, if the appreciation is significant, then on a small cost base, no matter how much you apply indexation, even if you make it 5 times, for example, if the cost was, 5 lakhs and you apply even an indexation of 5 times, it means 500%, it would still add up to only 25 lakhs. And if the property has appreciated over a longer period of time, it would have appreciated even more. And therefore, sometimes you might be better off with 12.5% when the cost base is very low. So essentially, I think it's an arithmetic for each property. You are absolutely right. The period will matter, but it depends on the cost base very much so.
Sayta, hi. It's also Samina joining in. Just one quick question. While now this is left in the hands of the homeowner to decide which tax regime to pick, do you feel like adding an element of subjectivity to this could complicate the process going ahead? And also, more importantly, it may get tough for the government to determine what sort of inflows it's going to be working with. I want to understand, giving the option to a homeowner, could that have any downside?
Right. I think from a taxpayer standpoint, this particular proposed amendment to the bill is not a disadvantage because it's just whichever is lower. He doesn't even have to do something to exercise it, very strictly speaking. The law simply says that the excess tax will be ignored, which means the lower of the two will apply. So I don't think he has too much to do, but yes, it does complicate. Your point is right, and that I think was the government's original plea in trying to defend what it was proposing in the original budget, that in order to simplify, there is, this is what we've done. But now I think they have heard the demands of the taxpayers. I think it's a very good step. It does certainly, to some extent, reduce the simplification story that was there in the original finance bill. But they have heard the requests and demands of taxpayers. This sounds to be more fair, and it builds an element of trust because when taxpayers have properties which they are holding up to 22nd July 24, to suddenly change the rules for older properties which have been acquired and held by the taxpayers without notice would be inappropriate, I thought. So this is like a grandfathering for all long-term capital assets which are land buildings acquired before 23rd July. That means up to 22nd July, they are grandfathering and saying that whenever the property is sold, whether now in this financial year or any year in the future, they would give the benefit of this option. As I said, it's whichever is lower of the tax will apply. And I think therefore it builds that element of trust. It also is fair, which is what the government here is trying to do. I would really welcome this, though it slightly complicates matters for sure.
Well, it gives a lot of work to see, that's for sure. But thank you so much, Mr. Sayta, for joining us and putting that into perspective.